G'day guys, Dunada, Huidag, my name is Wildkard, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, the reigning, the defending, the undisputed number one ranked team in the world, the greatest team in the history of rugby, the mighty Amaboku Boku has once again proved to the world that New South Wales is the best Wales, okay? Of course, this was painful to watch if you're a Welshman. This was almost like watching a sparring partner trying to help prepare his fighter for a bigger fight, right? All the combination was thrown at 70% of the intensity, trying to not hurt your fighter, and everything was predictable, everything was pre-planned, and everything played exactly into, right, the fighter's, game plan that is preparing for another bigger fight that's ahead of them, right? And of course, in some ways, this is probably a preparation for the Springboks going into against the mighty All Blacks in the greatest rivalry tour that's coming up. But, this is, if you're a Welsh fan, you kind of want to ask, like, where do you go forward from here? I think it is pretty tough. Like, how many years has it been now for the Welsh team, right? Since Warren Gooseland, I'm not going to call him Warren Gooseland because I do think he did a really terrible job for the Welsh after the Rugby World Cup 2023. Remember, in 2023, a lot of the high level, like, I guess not high level, but a lot of the top players, a lot of the veterans retired for Wales, like Dan Biggar, like, your Tipperick, and I think George North may have retired at that time as well. A lot of these guys just went, okay, we're done. We're finished after the World Cup. And what Warren Gatland did after that, right, they came and toured Australia in the July, right, and sent his B team. Despite already having a rundown team, desperately need to get cohesion, desperately need to get players on the same page and put out some good, and try to, live up to the expectations that the previous generation left for them. Warren Gatland said, hey, some of you guys can take a break. And came to Australia, lost all 3 matches, test matches, and went on to that extremely long, 3 years, 4 years, losing streak for the Welsh national team. And we're still feeling the problem that started on that day for the Welsh side. And one of the difference, you will see it on the Springboks team. Just like, the sparring partner, that's called almost like mirror image of the fighter. You can see what the Springbok is doing that the Warren Gatland has failed to do. The Springboks, right, on the field had the veterans leading the newer players. It is one of the best analysis, I guess, best example of how important this is. Even though, and I really hope the Wallabies do this a bit more as well. Just having some veteran presence to really keep, it's not just if you work in trades, you know this. They don't just give you a manual and say, hey, here's a manual on how to install electronic backup generator in your house and go for it. They actually have to, you have to send, a proper electrician with an apprentice. So you have to go through an apprenticeship to actually learn how to do this sort of thing. They won't let you they don't just let you go and do your own electric, I don't know, maybe they do let you do that in South Africa, but in Australia, you're not allowed to just do that, both for safety reasons, but also, the manual itself is not enough to tell you how things is going to do, how things are actually supposed to work. And there are a lot of little things that are not written in the manual that are really important to pick up by people explaining it to you, working with you as in an apprenticeship. And that's what's really, really important. That's the transfer of knowledge beyond what's written on the book, right? And what Wales did and what Warren Gatland did, right, in some sense, the start of the fall of the Welsh side is that broken process of getting rid of the apprenticeship, right? When Dan Biggar said he wasn't going to retire, I really thought they should have just told him to stick around for a little bit, even just as an assistant, even just as a player that comes off the bench, something that, especially looking at how desperately they need the newer 10s to grow and develop and get some of that rub some of that experience from him. They just didn't do that. And also, I think Anscombe was available as well. They didn't really use him as either. Just really arrogantly, I think, in my opinion, to think that he can just take a bunch of fresh players, kind of like what Eddie Jones thinks as well, because you're the coach. Just give him the manual, right? Just give him the installation manual, and that's good enough for the players to become world class. And I just think that's just really, really not not the right way to go about it. And we see that, like, how many years now? Like, that was 2004. It is now 2006, right? 4, 5, 6, 3 years later, the Welsh team is still absolutely a shell of of its former self on the field today. And you can just tell the difference, right? Springboks bring on your players, influenced heavily by the experienced players around them on the field. You know, they're getting live feedback on what they're doing right and wrong by people around them, and they're seeing how to deal with certain situations in front of them live by looking at the players that are more experienced than they are. And I think that is just just like the simple idea of apprenticeship, to completely, derailed. It's I think one of the main reasons the Welsh team derailed, because these coaches, superstar coaches like Warren Gooseland, thinks that they can just give him, he's good enough to teach you. Don't need the experience. Get rid of him. And let's go to Australia with a B team, and we'll go from there, boys. We're building towards the future. And just shows how folly this thinking, this line of thinking actually is. So yeah, that's probably all I want to say with Wales. Everything was dominant. This was an absolute nightmare for the Welsh team. The scrum was just brutal. Like, it is seriously like living nightmare if you're a front rower in playing this sort of games. Like, every scrum, you're just getting dominated. Every time there's a mistake, you're gonna get thrown into the fire, right? It's like they're saying that you jump out of the frying pan into the fire. Like, it's even worse than the frying pan. The fire is a scrum, and you're facing like imminent penalty once again. It is absolutely brutal. And one of the things I want to point out with the scrummaging, because obviously the Welsh team had a pretty good scrum. They have a pretty good foundation to the scrum. They were pretty competent in the Six Nations. And like last couple of weeks, they also showed that their dominance in the scrum, both against Argentina and probably not dominance, but they definitely had the front foot against Argentina. Definitely had a dominance against Fiji. And one of the things that you will see, I just want to point this one. This was one of the best scrums I've seen from the Springboks. One of the things that you will notice that the Springboks do extremely well, and I think this is something that may have been overlooked a little bit. Springboks do this really well, not just in the scrum, but in the lineouts as well, in the lineout more as well. It's the fact that they can time their push together as a team in unison. That's the really important part that gets him in the front foot. So we'll just watch this, and I'll explain to you why this is so important. So let's just watch this. So the board's like the board's coming in, and you can see this like bang, the entire team, all 8 players just punching it through with a leg drive at the same time. It's almost like it's the Welsh feed. It's almost like the Welsh players weren't expecting the ball to be put in or something. Like, it was really like it looks so. It looks so bad, because this is something that a lot of teams, I think, are not doing. A lot of teams are not doing this, and you might think, oh, this is because the Springboks are so stronger than the Welsh team, are bigger than the Welsh team. They're not that much stronger, not that much bigger, right? Rhys Carey is one of the biggest and strongest front rowers in the world, and he's like one of them, and like actually really, really athletically good, like just carrying the ball as well. So it's definitely not an athletic issue. But why is there such a big difference when it comes to scrummaging? And this is the beauty of a team sport, and this is the beauty of the scrum. It is the synergy you can generate by being timing everybody's push perfectly. It is like one of the things, if you do rowing, I did rowing when I was a kid. If you do rowing, or if you do any sort of like bow sport, you will know this. In the rowing, if you have everybody, the 8 rowers perfectly synced, and you have 8 rowers not perfectly synced, it's like day and night the difference in speed. If you've done any sort of rowing, I don't know if there's any other sport I can think of this, that's similar to this. But if you do rowing, you will know this exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not in sync, if you're just tiny bit out of sync, right, the little bit of resistance that you're putting by putting the blades into the water a little bit slower than your teammate, your crew members, slows the board down, slows the bow down exponentially. And having everybody sing together just perfectly in unison speeds the boat up dramatically. Like, and the technique, right? One of the most important part, when you do rowing, the technique is sometimes more important than your actual like strength and power. And there are times, there are times and there are times that the crews are selected. If you're in school or something, the crews are selected not because you're the biggest and strongest, but because of your technique and your ability to be able to time those strokes in sync with your team. And that makes the boat go faster than any, strength and power that you can bring that you can bring to a crew. And obviously, if you do have the strength and power, that just adds a bonus. But the technique is more important than strength and power. In most aspect of the sport, and I think that applies here as well. Just the unison, the timing, and you can watch the lineouts as well. The more from the Springbok lineout as well. Just like the way that he packs in, like they preset the lineout and they engage the more for the Springboks. Maybe I can find one at some point. It's just again really really well timed, and just like the scrum, it's just it's not really because the Springboks are bigger or more stronger or whatnot. It's because of the timing of everybody just hitting the opposition all at the same time. And that's like the difference between the massive difference there in terms of the results. So that's something that was again really 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 impressed by from the Springboks. There's two number 10s on the field for the Springboks. We got Moyo, Vusi Moyo. I hope I got his name right this time. Vusi Moyo was on the field in the first half. Definitely very very talented and athletic, but he wasn't given that many opportunities to direct the play. A lot of the game was played out of the number 9 jersey from Kobus Reinach. Was almost like a Gibson Park style of game out of Reinach. A lot of short balls, a lot of switching back and forward between the forwards, and just him almost picking up the ball and then taking the dart himself and then try to set someone up, almost like a playmaker out of the 9 there. Something that I was expecting from Grant Williams, actually. We did not see that, but we definitely saw a bit of that playmaker out of 9 position from Kobus Reinach, especially when Moyo was on the field. So that was a bit interesting to see, and I kind of wish that given Moyo a bit more, but I think that given the circumstances, this is something that this was also an opportunity, I guess, to expand on the 9 jersey, the role of the 9 jersey for the Springboks. In the second half, once the man in the block came on, the game went a lot wider. There was a lot more freedom to throw the ball around, and also the kicking game became a bit more unpredictable as well. Not just the box kicks. There was some clearly targeted kicks to set up Willemse, which again I thought was brilliant. To try to mismatch those high ball areas for Willemse there as well. But in the end of the day, I do think that the consistency is a bit of a problem for the Springboks team. The overwhelming dominance in the 4-pack can only get you so far, and the ultimately there were periods of the lows because of the players being changed around, maybe because of whatever reason. I think the Springboks could have done a lot better. Like, to be honest, could have really put the scoreboard into the 50s, 60s even, if there wasn't for a lot of the little mistakes that occurred in this game. Especially when those mistakes, especially I think Rasi might be really disappointed because a lot of these mistakes were like unpressured mistakes, unforced errors. It's not like the Welsh were really belting you hard and you're making mistakes. They were just like passes not going to hands and silly offsides and breakdown issues and whatnot. And it's just something that whilst you're not really under that much pressure, this should not have happened to the extent that actually, obviously there'll be some amounts, but not to the amount that I think we saw tonight. I think Rasi will will probably have a pretty critical analysis on that after the game for himself too. Other than that, I think that's pretty much all I want to talk about. Let's go have a look at the match stats of the game. 7 tries to nil. There was at no point the Welsh team looked like they could score. So the defense was absolutely outstanding. 513 run meters for the Springboks, 112 for the Welsh. 20 turnovers conceded. Yeah, that is a big red mark on the scoreboard for Rasi to look at. 11 against the Wilds in terms of turnovers. 100 tackles made, 7 missed tackles. So this might look good, but the Springboks weren't really challenged in terms of their defense as well. So it's good, but it's because they're not really challenged there. 125 for the Wilds, 126 missed tackles for Welsh, 32 kicks in play for Springboks, 33 for the Welsh. Again, 3 missed conversions, 1 from Moyo and 2 from Lebok, I believe. So yeah, again, that's not ideal in anything like this. 823 kick meters for the Springboks, 1,013, one of the highest kick meters so far, I guess, in the Nations Championship for Wales. 20 lineouts, 100% for the Springboks. 10 lineouts for Wales, 1 loss there. No scrum loss out of 5 for the Springboks. Nice scrums for Wales, 1 and then 2 losses. So definitely some turnovers there from the absolute dominance from Springboks scrummaging. 9 penalties considered for the Springboks, 14 against the Welsh, with 1 yellow card issued for. What was the yellow card for? There was a yellow card for a high hit on Van Staden on the reserve number 18 from Wales. There's a Van Staden ran into him. I think that was just Van Staden. Yeah, he should have been lower. That's a key. Van Staden ran into him pretty hard with head on the shoulder, absorbing tackle pretty much. But there was one point where the Springboks was under penalty warning. So again, things like that could have escalated into a yellow card for the Springboks, especially considering how little pressure they were on for the most part of the game. It should not be in that position. Put yourselves in that position at all. Let's do a quick summary of the game. There's not too much to talk about, just one-sided dominance. 4 minutes into the game, the Jasper, the headbutt machine, Visa, gets a try from a short ball from Reinach, just around the rack. There've been just some quick balls building into this, and Reinach just picks him off, crashes straight through, 7 points to nil. 12 minutes in the game, there was absolute scrum dominance from the Springboks. They get the turnover, the one that just showed you there, and then they went for another scrum, and then Reinach picked the ball, went to the blind side, scoring this try straight from the base. This looks very similar, in fact, almost identical to the Adi Savia try from the for the All Blacks earlier today. It's the same position, same angle, and Reinach is the one that did get the job done for the Springboks here. 14 points to nil. 40 minutes in the game, there was a nice crossfield kick from Moyo with a penalty advantage. What happened here? What happened here? There was a crossfield. It was a penalty advantage, but eventually Jesse Creel goes in for the try. I can't remember exactly what happened. I think the ball was scooped up by Jesse Creel. There was a crossfield. There was a juggle, and then the ball went to the ground, and then Jesse Creel scooped up, went in for the try from the crossfield kick. Just before halftime as well. Sorry, and that was the halftime score, 19 points to nil. Second half, right away, from the kickoff, the Springboks was getting the ball back. There was an exit, a terrible exit from the Welsh team. The box kick literally went didn't go anywhere, and then it went straight down, and then to the Springbok hands right outside their own 22, and then there was just a matter of hands between the Springbok players down the short side, and then Williams, the new guy, Jacko Williams, I think his name is, went in for the try. 26 points to nil. 61 minutes. There was a period about 20 minutes where the Springboks went into a bit of a low. There was so many mistakes. They could have scored, it didn't score. There was more that was held up. So there was, and then the reserve starting to come. There was the bomb squad came on early as well. Didn't really stifle that, and it waited till pretty much till Willemse came on, and Man in the Block came on when the game started to pick up again. So 63 minutes, Willemse was basically got the ball. He wiggles through a bunch of defenders, and then he got tackled near the sideline. Yang Shis looked up and saw the Welsh players coming up towards him because he got the ball out, and he just flung the ball out to the sideline for Williams. He ran down and flicked the ball back in field for Yang Shis, went in for the try. 31 points to nil. Almost as soon as Willemse is on the field, the slump for the Springboks came out of it. 64 minutes. Van Staden ran into Wales number 18, and Wales number 18 yellow card. 68 minutes. Springboks went for another more. They crashed over. They got pretty. I think they got a penalty advantage. The ball came out. They couldn't quite get to the try. Came out to Man in the Block. Man in the Block. Long pass over the top to Kurdi Arinsa. He had about just plenty of space to work with. It just ran straight through for the try. 36 points to nil. 79 minutes just before full time. Again, the Springboks went for that line out. Went for the more, and then the more runs over for the try for I think it was, who was it? De Villiers, I think it was. I got this try. 43 points to nil for the Springboks. Massive dominant victory over the Welsh. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe. I do think that Racing needs to settle on one really, really good team against the All Blacks, because currently, despite the big scoreline, despite the big score lines in the last 3 weeks, I am, I do think that this, it'll be, I do think that the All Blacks, it's not that far behind. It's not that far behind. So I think that, if the Springboks thinks that this is gonna be a easy series against the All Blacks, I think they'll be a little bit surprised on just how good the All Blacks actually is coming into this. It's better. The All Blacks are much better than the last few years. Let me just say that, to say the least. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys a bit later. Cheers.